John Gold, I'm a 9/11 truth activist. Currently underway in New York City, there are a number of New York City citizens who are trying to get a new investigation into 9/11 on the ballot. If you go to nyccan.org, nyccan.org, you can make a donation and help them out. The family members, have called for an investigation. So if you can, please help them out. Also, H.R. 847, the James Zadroga 9/11 Health and Compensation Act, is hopefully going to be voted on by this anniversary. This would give the 9/11 first responders that are sick and dying the health care that they need, which they so desperately need. So if you can, please call your reps and tell them that you support H.R. 847.
I'd like to bring up the person who, in my opinion, can really reignite and reinvigorate the entire movement. The person that I love very dearly, and I'm sure most of you do too, is Miss Sheehan.
So this book came out of my experiences in the last 5 years since Casey died, especially my experience of running against Queen of the Robber Class, Nancy Pelosi, and about how there really is only one division in this country, and that's the robber class and the robbed class. And I would venture to guess that most of us in here belong to the robbed class. They take our money, they take our labor, they take our children to kill in robber class wars, and all of this economic exploitation, they profit, we pay. Right? We pay, they profit. Over and over and over again. We support them so they can send their children to fancy schools, have fancy houses, drive fancy cars, fly fancy airplanes, sail in fancy boats, whatever. We're actually supporting that. Many of us have lost our homes, our jobs, our support networks, and many of us have lost our retirement accounts, our health care, and we're scraping by so the robber class can prosper. We even send our children to fight in the robber class wars and to kill other people's children. So, not only do I want to expose myths that keep us chained to the robber class system. Barack Obama is not so much about change, he's about chains. We're still chained to the system, no matter if the president's a Democrat, no matter if the president's white, black, brown, yellow, purple, green, whatever. We still are being oppressed. We're still being exploited. And the only reason we are is because we let them. It's because we don't put our foot down and say no. I want my money, my labor, for my family, and you cannot have my children. You cannot have my child, you can't have my neighbor's child, you can't have my enemy's child. We're not letting you take our children to kill in robber class wars anymore. Robber class wars for power and profit. So, that's why I wrote this book, to talk about the myths, to expose the myths, to dispel the myths, and then to give solutions to the myths. The solutions to the problems we're having in this country.
Hi, Cindy. How are you? First and foremost, I want to say that I'm very sorry for your loss, for the loss of Casey.
Thank you, John.
I want to thank you for everything that you've done in the last 5 years. Camp Casey was an inspiration to everyone in this country, every movement who was against the war. It was an inspiration. And so thank you. Right? You know who I am, so you know what my question is going to be about. However, I want to try and do this in a way you've probably never experienced before, and keeping in mind that I know that you support what I do. So, Cindy, which event started the wars that we are trying to end?
You mean one certain event?
Well, I was hoping you would say 9/11, obviously.
Yeah, they started the current ones.
Right. So, it's pretty obvious at this point that we were lied to about 9/11. You know, we have evidence of obstruction of justice, evidence of criminal negligence. There were whistleblowers with pertinent information regarding the 9/11 attacks who were ignored and censored by the 9/11 Commission. The family members that fought for the creation of the 9/11 Commission, the individuals that went to every single hearing, that supplied the 9/11 Commission with hundreds of well-researched questions, they're now calling for a new investigation, along with many other family members. My question is, isn't it time for this country, isn't it time for the progressive movements, after DowningStreet.org, Daily Cause, and so forth, to expose the 9/11 cover-up? Because if you expose the 9/11 cover-up, you can end the 9/11 wars, and hopefully, return this country to what it was intended to be. And I hope you could explain to me why the peace movement is not jumping on the bandwagon to expose the 9/11 cover-up. And thank you, I love you.
Thank you. I don't know why the peace movement isn't jumping on the bandwagon. I know Marcos Melitzis of the Daily Kos just says, because I believe the officials' report. I don't understand how anybody can believe anything this government says. But especially if it's Dick Cheney and George Bush saying it. So I call for a new investigation. I joined, and I have publicly joined the 9/11 families that want a new investigation. But I also realize that George Bush and Dick Cheney have admitted to lying. They've admitted to formulating torture policies. Torture is against our own law and international law. And when Dick Cheney is on Meet the Press or something, admitting that, why don't they go arrest him then? Because they know right where he is. So this is that's one thing in the robber class. Our system of laws. There's multiple systems of laws in this country. But there's especially one for the robber class and one for the robbed class. The only time I've seen a robber have swift justice recently is Bernie Madoff. And why did Bernie Madoff get swift justice? Because he stole money from members of his own class. If he stole money from us, they would erect a statue to him on Wall Street. So, I really, for one thing, I think the peace movement needs to broaden its scope. I don't think we need to narrowly define an anti-war movement as only being against Iraq. Some organizations won't even be against Afghanistan because they say that a lot of people support Afghanistan. It doesn't matter if a lot of people support the wrong thing, that we still have to have the integrity to say it's wrong. And so the peace movement, of course, is broad in scope. The peace movement recognizes, the inconsistencies in 9/11, the 9/11 report. It recognizes that the violence in our streets in the inner cities is directly related to the violence in Iraq and Afghanistan. It realizes that justice for one is justice for all, or injustice for one is injustice for all. So what we have in this country is an anti-Republican war movement. And once it becomes a Democratic war or started by Democrats, then we're not so anti-war anymore. What if we were pro-peace? What if we were pro-justice? What if we were consistent in our demands? What if we were consistent in our integrity? Then we might get a government that has integrity also.